Welcome back to the Dead Elephants podcast.
You are looking amazing today. Have you been moisturising?
I did, yeah. I used a hydrating mask.
Have you had some fillers?
No, I don't. I like my lips the way they are.
You sure?
Yeah, I don't like, man.
Are you sure? Like, really? You like them how they are?
I don't get into the big pouty lips. I don't think it's necessary.
Maybe you should.
These are great. What are you talking about?
Today we're talking about dad bods and Botox. Generally a question around physical body image, stewardship of the self, and our incarnate beings. Just a light one.
Okay. Elephant scale on this one.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say 5. If I was just looking at my experience, I'd probably be a 10, and I'll say why.
Okay.
But I balance that out with my lack of theological processing of this issue, which is why I want to have the conversation. So, full disclosure, I was the fat kid at school. I got bullied like crazy for it.
Oof.
And so still to this day, I don't think I have a healthy image of self, and frankly never have. I still emotionally revert back to that scared, bullied child more often than I'd like to admit. So yeah, I've lived it, but theologically I think I could do more to think through it, which is, again, why I think this episode is helpful.
I was a bully at school and bullied numerous fat kids, and probably still need to apologise to anyone who's listening who was bullied by me at school. Complete jerk. I had great verbal skills.
I'm sure.
And wanted to be the class clown and still want to be the class clown. And so would often make a mockery. And so, yeah, sorry about that. So if you were at my school, I was probably the guy who was bullying you. So this should be a very interesting talk today. You've got the bully and the bullied. So
where are you out of 10?
Well, I lay awake worried about getting old and dying.
Okay. Yeah, and this is the thing about this conversation. I think there's multiple dimensions to it. You've got the aging part of the conversation.
Yep.
You've got the self-image part of the conversation. And then you've got, I'll put it this way. I remember a pastor at my church many years ago got up and said, I have the sin of gluttony and I need to do something about it. And he actually started to frame physical stewardship of his own body through the realm of sin. And I thought it was a really gutsy decision that he made. And he was speaking about himself, so he could.
Yeah.
But he basically lost about 25, 30 kilograms and he's kept it off. But I remember him talking about it and calling it out and saying he was not honoring God with his body. And so he decided to lose weight for that reason. And I just thought, whoa, like whatever you think about that, it just really opened my eyes to navigating this on a different lens. And it feels impossible because you don't want to body shame someone. And I'm someone who's been body shamed. And so again, he could do it because he was talking about himself and not other people. But I suppose what he was trying to do was start to set an example for how others maybe ought to think about their own bodies, not just physically, but theologically as well. So there's lots of ways we can go on this. So let's start with the aging part.
Do you want to start there? I'm happy to start out because the thing that came out of what you said for me was the body shame thing is, I don't know how you say to an individual, just going to be frank, like,
no,
you're really fat and you probably need to lose some weight. You can't say that.
Sure.
How do you say that healthily? Like, I am concerned about your future and the increased risk of congestive heart failure because of your current physical predicament concerns me. And I want to see you live a full, healthy life in step with Jesus than a less than healthy. Like I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to fat shame.
Yep.
It's
so loaded that quite frankly, I don't know if you can. Like theoretically, you should be able to, but I wonder whether the best we can do is shine light on the issue and let the individual make their own decision rather than, trying to take the speck of sawdust out of their eye, because they could yeah, it's so precarious. Like,
Do you know what's the largest cancer in Australia?
what?
Skin cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're out in the sun all the time.
Sure.
Do you know what number 2 is?
No.
Colon cancer.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have a very specific kind of cancer that comes as a result of us not cleaning our barbecues well enough, and we leave that black, gristly nastiness on it, which means that we have had the increased rates of colon cancer, which also then means that the most expensive part of our medical care is dealing with these issues. And then after that, obesity factors in. So obesity style medical care.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at the strains on the medical system because of poor lifestyle choices. It accounts for most of the. Does it? You get what I'm saying?
What's your link?
Well, if we addressed poor lifestyle choices, it would profoundly reduce the expenses for reactionary medical care. So Korea, right? South Korea, not North Korea.
Shout out to Kim Jong-un.
South Korea has like a preventative medical system. Come in, we're going to evaluate you, tell you all the things that you know. I think Japan does this as well, right? You pay a doctor to keep you healthy. You don't pay a doctor when you're sick because they've failed. They haven't kept you healthy. I really like that format. We don't have that here. So we have like a reactive healthcare. So when you're sick and when you're unwell, that's when doctors make all their money. If we flip that and say, doctors, you only make money when you've got healthy people. So your goal is to have as many healthy people in your roster so you can get paid. But the moment you start getting sick people, you're working for free. That's the framework that I think is a healthier style.
But I feel like it has to be an individual that has to make that decision for themselves. Like,
can they though? People won't change unless the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same.
How much do you call people out generally for things as a pastor?
Oh, versus, that's my job. Doom and gloom.
See,
I'm not calling out sin in people's lives, I'm not living the love of Jesus.
Yeah, right. Remind me never to go to your church. No, but pointing, like, it's a fine line between raising the issue and letting the person. And I think we need. I'm trying to raise the issue with this podcast.
Sure,
but I'm not going to then go to someone and say, "And that episode was for you." There's a big difference between those two things. By the way, tune in this week.
Consuela, this episode's for you. Oh, that's brutal. But that I think this is the nuanced nature of this conversation. It makes it really hard. I could be fitter.
Mm-hmm.
I could be 5 kilograms lighter. I could walk more. I could eat better. These are all the things that would lead to me having a healthier lifestyle. Yet I would still say I'm a pretty healthy individual.
You're an Adonis.
No, I'm not an Adonis.
You're a silver fox. No, and look, I think like to bring a Bible verse in, 1 Timothy 4, Paul says it, for physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. I think that's a helpful verse because it's saying physical training is important.
Yep.
Physical health is important, but it's not everything. And I think we can sway too far both ways. We can be so obsessed with our physical selves that we even forget that we're a spiritual, emotional, mental being as well.
Yeah.
Or we can focus so much on the fact that I'm going to get my new body in the new creation that we just give up any sort of hope of physical health, which, let's be honest, is becoming harder and harder. Sedentary lifestyles, processed food, like, let's be honest, it's not impossible, clearly, but you have to be very intentional about it. So
Yes.
there's a balance there in Paul's theology that says look after your body and recognize that your body is not the sum total of who you are.
Yeah, but this is balance and moderation and
Sure.
wisdom, is that for a person who is stuck in their way, statistically, someone will give me, but I think it's 3 months to form a healthy habit, and it's like 3 days to break a healthy habit. So
That sucks.
the energy and effort takes to create a healthy framework for life is easily undone by 2 or 3 days. And so what it requires is a conscious commitment, because the thing is we want fast results, right? We have been predispositioned to want immediate gratification. So digital addiction has created this. Physical transformation takes time. And not only that, it sits on a J curve of learning. That is to say, when you start the process, you immediately get worse at it for a season before you get better at it. So you get a J. And that makes it really hard for an individual who has all this predisposition to immediate gratification to then go, I'm going to do a fad diet or do a juice cleanse or something like that to immediately shock my body into losing that weight. And then your body kind of goes into survival mode. And the moment you give it any kind of form of caloric intake, you just put the weight back on immediately. So you Oprah Winfrey the situation and go fat, thin, fat, thin, fat, thin, fat, thin. And it's like, no, you've got to actually redesign everything.
Well, I want to even challenge that a little bit and say different people biologically have different physical dispositions, makeups.
Yeah.
So it can't be about one set body type as the goal. There has to be in the Christian conversation an aspect that says, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made by God.
Yeah.
For some of us, that will mean we have skinnier body types. For some of us, that will mean we have larger body types. So it can't just
Polynesian frames.
There you go. It can't. You've just made 2 racially assumed jokes there with Consuela and Polynesian.
Well, I'm just listening.
How about you look at yourself?
Well, I try to all the time. I had a buddy who's a bus driver, Polynesian guy, and they said he's obese.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm not. I'm Polynesian. I'm Polynesian. I eat like taro root, and I'm actually healthy.
Yeah.
And he's like, the problem is you're using a white man scale to figure me out.
Right. So therefore,
Yeah.
that it has to be something deeper than appearance. There has to be a paradigm of stewardship,
Yeah.
creation. What is the body that God has given me that He has not made an accident in making? And how do I use that body well to glorify Him?
But any physical trainer / nutritionist that's worth their weight in salt will pick up on that immediately and design a program around that.
But I think emotionally for the rest of us hacks, we start believing that in order to have healthy self-image and in order to be attractive, we have to look a certain way. And I just think on the one hand, our theology pushes us towards healthy stewardship. The body is a temple. On the other hand, our theology points us towards the fact that temple will look different for different ones of us. It's about how we're using it, not how we're looking.
But you can be using it really well and looking terrible.
And I would say that's success.
No, it's not.
But if you're using it, hang on, what do you mean by using it well and looking terrible?
So you could have a pastor who's David Livingstone.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, you do. He's the missionary who goes to Africa to share the good news of Jesus.
Oh, okay.
Way back in the day.
Oh, the Jungle Doctor.
Jungle Dog.
Okay.
And so he goes and does all this sharing of the good news of Jesus, and along the way, his kid dies from malnutrition.
Oh, no, this isn't the Jungle Doctor. Let me remove my reference from that.
All right.
Sorry, Jungle Doctor.
But you would go, mate, you're kicking goals left, right, and centre, but you're sacrificing your family.
No, you misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying you can steward all of that physically and still look like, let me put it another way. We could do the same exercise routine. We could have the same diet and you could come away 15 kilos lighter than me just because of genetic disposition. Is what I'm saying.
So there's energy and effort to physically improve oneself, and the results of that are different. That's different to what I thought you were saying.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was saying that if you've got a person who's like eating fatty and doing incredible things for Jesus, I would say that I've got a real issue.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. No, what I'm saying is that
your donut diet does not fly here.
In the context of physical image.
Yeah, of course. You got endomorphs and ectomorphs and mesomorphs.
So there has to be a fear of God rather than fear of man here.
Yeah.
It says, God has given me my body to steward. Whatever other people think about that is secondary to how I'm using it in service to the Lord, is what I'm saying.
So you and I we've got different body types,
Yeah.
and we do the exact same physical routine.
Mhm.
Okay, we do the One Punch Man physical routine. We do 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, and we run a mile
Yep.
every single day without fail. Our body types at the end of that process look different,
Mm-hmm.
but we are healthier.
Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Amen. Great.
And I'm saying that the reason you do that is because God has given you your body to steward, and therefore how you see yourself has to be determined by how God sees you, not by how other people see you, is my point.
Yeah, there's like a comedian who makes this joke and says, God has no favorites. That's a lie. He made Chris Hemsworth and he made me. Clearly has favorites.
Well, okay, so seriously, what do you do with that? What do you do with the fact that there are Chris Hemsworths and there's
Yeah,
the rest of us?
awesome. I don't think the I'm prettier or less pretty than another person is really the benchmark for beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you get these incredibly stunning individuals.
Mm.
Like Hemsworth is really easy on the eye. Charlize Theron is like, we could go through a bunch of different names here. These people are really easy on the eyes, but that is not the sum total of beauty.
Mm.
You know, like this is the whitewashed tombs
Mhm.
analogy. Is you have very, very, very beautiful people who are dead on the inside. And I think that there is some kind of a place for a person who says, yeah, I got to work out, I got to eat healthy, I got to look after my body, and I got to love Jesus. And that whole thing is a holistic approach. Is that, you know, I've got buddies who run yoga studios who are Christians,
Mhm.
who are thinking through holistic coaching techniques. Alyssa Mack, you know, who are saying it's a mind, body, soul initiative, and we've got to get all of them in check. All of that is good.
And it's hard because I agree with you. And
But I'm not going for Hemsworth.
Well,
I'm going for the best version of me.
But I don't think that's. Yep, I agree. I think in our Christian culture, because we don't talk about it, it's easy to fly towards polar opposites of train, or stuff it. God loves me no matter what. Doesn't matter what I do with my body. And I think they're both mistakes. And I think because we don't talk about it enough, perhaps we don't have a healthy middle ground to view our bodies for what they are, vessels to the Lord, not the sum total of what we do, but also not inconsequential.
Yeah, comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to oscillate between either of those two extensions. But no amount of doing the Hemsworth workout program is going to make you look like Hemsworth.
Yep.
He's got his.
But even if you did, is that the goal of your life?
It should. Well, I guess if you want to be a Christian evangelist fitness model,
Sure.
That's
It's a real niche.
Yeah, I was like, it's a niche evangelistic strategy.
Yeah.
But it's a strategy, I guess.
Sure.
I like to learn stuff. And part of the joy is the process of learning. And I think for a lot of, you know, and I'm speaking, I guess, to a potential Christian fitness fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that joy is in the process of seeing what you can push your body to be. You know, like a lot of the, you know, there's a real resurgence in like a ex-special forces TED speaker / motivational speaker. And I can't remember for the life of me his name. I literally read his book the other week, You Can't Hurt Me or whatever it is. But part of those guys' goals is to push their body past the limit of what they think it can handle.
Yep.
To see where it goes. It's, you know, it's the same idea with academia, is that you get this doctorate to try and push past the point of research and understanding of a topic.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mental, intellectual exercise. Fitness people are doing the same thing. They're just pushing past on the physical level.
But I would say as a Christian, in both the physical and the intellectual example, why are you doing it? Are
Yeah.
you doing it to serve others and serve God, or are you doing it just to feel great about yourself. And I think if it's, yes, there are positive self benefits. When I get a doctorate, I feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
But the question now becomes, how am I going to use that?
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference in the Christian space is we think about that from a mental and an emotional and certainly a spiritual. I don't think we think about it in the physical because it's such a touchy subject.
Yes.
That it just becomes too hard. I mean, it's an elephant, right? It's this podcast. It's really hard to talk about this with others. And I think as a result of that, I don't think about it enough ourselves about how we're using or not using our bodies in service to the Lord.
Yeah, and the challenge is that you meet an individual who has type 2 diabetes, is heavy breathing, has sleep apnea, and is rocking around in a mobile walker thingy.
Yep.
And they're like, oh man, my life is broken right now, while they're smashing a donut, and you for the life of them want to yell at them, eat a salad. But you're immediately fat shaming.
Sure.
And so that's where I think as a pastor, there's just no framework whereby I can address that or call that out as being like the issue.
Yeah.
Like positive body self-image, whatever that is, makes it so hard, because if you own that shape, then the moment that you say, like I go and see my doctor and he goes, Dunk, you're 5 kilos overweight. You need to start losing some weight. And I'm like, have you seen some of the folks who come? Like, have you seen the waiting room? You telling me I need to lose weight? Like, I work out, and I'm like, get such an ego about it.
Yep.
But he's right.
Yep.
Like, he's got all the data there.
Yep.
And he assesses the data. And I'm a white man, so he's using white man scale, not Polynesian. Sorry, brother. And he goes, you need to be this weight and you are not this weight. And that's the healthiest place you can be. And I immediately get an ego about it.
So how do we find a healthy way forward as Christians in terms of, I suppose, self-esteem and body image? What is an ideally right response to this?
I don't even know, because I feel like my response for why I do the things I do is because I don't want to be fat like my dad, And that was my big thing, is Dad was significantly overweight for a large portion of his life. And so I just don't want to be the fat dad. And so I've got a bit of a dad bod, but I've got a real aversion to it, which is why I train and go for walks and lift kettlebells and try and eat right, because I want to nurture that body as long as God's got me in it, And I think that the counterpoint to that is I also want to leverage that body for all it's worth to the glory of God.
What does that mean?
So
because I think conceptually that's the theoretical answer to this conversation. What you've just said then, I want to leverage my body to the glory of God. What does that actually mean?
So if I'm healthily managing my body, then I have longevity in it, which allows me to function in ministry longer. I don't have a great desire to hit 50 and just season out of everything, like sell the company, move on to green pastures and just fish for the rest of it. Like I actually think I just don't.
You want to live with purpose till your dying day.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that, like I serve in the church that I'm at for, I don't know, let's pick a number, 12 years, 13 years. And then after that, I move on to another endeavor. And then after that, it changes shape because I'm now in a retirement season. And so, but I'm still working all the way up. Like, I don't like retirement. I think we lose some incredible people because of retirement. And so I just want to work until the day I die. But to do that effectively, I've got to actually have a healthy body.
Sure.
And so it doesn't aid me to go, I hit 80 and now I just can't use this thing anymore. And I'm in a wheelchair and that's now limited my ability to do a whole bunch of stuff. I want to figure out a way that I can engage the core, strengthen the muscles to provide structure to the spine. So I could potentially go to a developing nation and teach pastors about Jesus or something at 70.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the key difference with what the world will not bring into this is ultimately well, not ultimately. Most of the time, physical exercise is through the prism of idolizing yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas the Christian framework is, yeah, of course I feel good when I'm in good shape. But there's also a bigger narrative at play that says I'm here to serve others as well.
Yeah. And I think.
And that doesn't have to mean you have washboard abs, right? That's a different, that's not just about physical perfection. That's not a perfectionistic like mentality, which is what's good about it.
So when I was at school, when you were at school, I was calling you fat to make a joke.
Mm-hmm. By the way, we didn't go to school together.
We didn't go to
He
school.
was just everything I hated.
Yeah,
personified.
the perfection of your hatred. Today, I want to say, I think some of your problems, and I'm not saying this to you, but I'm saying this in general. I think some of your problems are attributed to your obesity,
Mm-hmm.
and I care about your health
Mm-hmm.
because I want you to live to the fullest of who God has created you to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no permission to say that.
Sure.
And it's coming from a completely different place.
Yep.
On one hand, I'm trying to get a laugh and I'm being a total jerk
Yep.
and I'm a bully. On the other hand, I'm trying to say, you're just missing out on some of the goodness and you're just missing out on some of the fullness and you're just missing out on some of the great moments because there is an unhealthiness to which you're living in. That's positive body talk and body image and body shaming have just kind of negated any permission to say that.
Yeah, and I agree. And I don't know what we do about it except start to have this conversation and let the listener make up their own mind within themselves is a start. But I agree with you. It feels near impossible to have a conversation about it in a healthy, balanced way.
This is the worst way to end an episode.
Well, we're not going to end it because there's another prism of this, which is aging.
Oh.
So
no, I kept on trying to push that off.
No. I know you love talking about aging. So there's the self-image part of the conversation around our physical selves. There's also the aging component and the fact that at the end of the day, we're all slowly breaking down.
Yeah.
And we can only ever postpone and not avoid the inevitable, being death itself.
Yeah.
How do we think through that as a Christian, from a Christian perspective?
I don't. I try and ignore it as much as possible.
So we've spoken about this on the death episode. I'm really scared of death itself, but not so much the process of dying. You're the opposite. You're petrified at the process of disintegration and stoked for death, which, to be fair to you, I think you're actually more in the right than me. I think, outwardly we're wasting away, but inwardly we're being renewed day by day. That is the cold, hard truth of it. So there is glory in the aging. There is often refinement and maturity that comes within our souls.
Yeah.
But physically, there's no denying that, it's only going in one direction until the new creation.
So I think on the aging front, someone shared with me once that Blanche Devereaux on The Golden Girls was in her 40s. So I'm in my 40s. So there's a very real
What's up, Blanche?
It's a very real possibility that we could have been dating. That for me is an indicator of just how much we've transitioned from the 80s to now. It was 90s. I think Golden Girls is a 90s show. There's been these huge leaps forward in methods to counteract aging, but the reality is we can't stop death coming.
Sure.
Okay, so we've managed to prolong and extend life. Work practices have shifted. Like there's a real sense that we're trying to integrate standing desks and those walking machines. So hey, we want you to have a healthy, because you're going to have to be at a computer. So how can we do this in a way that's sustainable and good for your health? But we're going to age. And so I think that's the hardest thing for me to grapple. And certainly turning 40.
What's your fear? Why don't you like aging?
I wish I could take now the knowledge that I had and put it in the body of my kid and just say, man, these are the places. Do you know, like part of it is a fear of repeating the past.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like we have conversations with our kids about good diet and good eating. And part of that comes from a place of we didn't have good diet and good eating. And it's bit us in the ass years from now. Stretching, mobility stuff. Like this is a bit weird, but I do jiu-jitsu, so I'm slightly obsessed by it. Is that just basic mobility stuff that like you need to keep it as long as possible because it's good for you is all part of the aging stuff because at some place you lose it. Like you either use it or you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And at 40 we start to lose some of this.
Is that part of just curiously observing this? Are you part of what you don't like about aging is that some of your capacity starts to diminish? Is that the thing you don't like?
Mate, I've read so many books on this because I'm like so obsessed with how my body changes and what I have to do to maintain it, and even brain function shifts.
But is that like if I'm going to try to heart diagnose this for you, is part of your issue you're not willing to accept the limitations that God has put on you, and so you're trying to fight that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, or furious at myself for wasting potential.
Okay, so that's the other component.
And the problem is when I'm furious at myself for wasting potential, I then take it out on my kids in some way.
Good.
Right? Like
good strategy.
Super healthy.
Yeah, projection.
Yeah, projection.
Parenting 101.
Yeah. And so it's just like, it's just a conglomeration of brokenness that expresses itself in weird, stupid ways that I have to address. But
so does the fact
I lay awake last night dreading recording this issue.
Really?
Because I was like, I have dreams about being able to go back in time with my brain to the day I got married and just download a few things to my wife. Listen, I'm only going to be here a day. Here's some stuff you need to be aware of. Duncan's going to miss out on these opportunities. These are the basketball teams he needs to bet on. I could narrate the dream.
See, this is the difference between you're a past dweller, I'm a future dweller.
Oh man, I lay awake at night thinking about all the things I could have done differently.
What difference does the idea that we will receive a new body in heaven make to this conversation for you?
Oh yeah, that's great. I don't think I dwell on eternity enough, but I think most Protestant Christians from a Western world don't dwell on eternity enough.
I think that's right. And I think that's part of the issue that we face with putting all our emotional eggs in the basket of our physical selves.
Yeah.
Is we functionally don't believe that we're going to get a new body when it's all said and done.
Yeah. So I think healthily with aging, there's, I think it's Jewish has like 5 phases of manhood, and I'm a misogynist because I'm a man. That's all I obsess about is manhood, not womanhood. No. And it was really helpful for me because the transition between 30 and 40 was really hard because there's just stuff I can't do anymore. And I got really frustrated with that. And so getting a framework around what it looks like to lead from this new season of life was really helpful for me. But that's not just intellectually, but physically. There's a different, like I've got different strengths now physically. I've got a deeper core strength that I didn't have in my 20s. And so there's certain movements and lifting that I just could not do that I can do now. Like I'm stronger in a whole bunch of different places and I'm weaker in a whole bunch of different places. But if I'm just obsessed with what I don't no longer have, I miss all the blessings of what I do have now. And that then changes again 50 to 60, changes again, 70 to 80, is that there's a whole bunch of different seasons, but you can move through that. And the season I'm in now is strength through mobility, which I would never have been obsessed with before, but it's like stretching and lifting through movement and movement-based exercises, because those are the things that I can strengthen now that are going to help me through the next season. And then when I hit that, and I think the hardest thing for me is learning to be okay with the next season.
Well, the beauty, I suppose, that what faith offers is you have a purpose in all of those seasons. Now,
Yeah.
easier said than done, I get, but the beauty is, your physical capacity will go up and down at different times, and yet your reason for waking up in the morning remains the same. There's dear sister at church who actually just went to be with the Lord a couple of weeks ago, but she'd been terminally ill for 10 plus years. Body was completely shot. Like she could barely get out of her chair. But she was like the village evangelist in her village. And she would always say to me, God doesn't want to take me yet. He's still got work for me to do here.
Yeah.
And like, it was just such a beautiful example that whatever we have to shift up and shift down at different times, that purpose still remains. And the body and the physical self, I suppose, is subservient to that greater purpose, which means we neither obsess about our bodies nor do we neglect them. And there's this really healthy balance where our physical selves get put in their right place in loving God and loving your neighbor. That it's not an either or. It's just a really, I think, healthy, balanced perspective that we have theologically.
Yeah. So relationship with God is paramount. And then subservient to that is what? Nourishment of body or maintenance of body?
Yeah, and maintenance of body then
serves
other people.
Yeah.
We can't serve out of a place of complete emptiness. Although in my friend's case, my point is, if that's your perspective, you will still find a way to serve even to your dying day. Like you don't lose your purpose 5 years before you die.
Yeah.
You have your purpose to your very last day, however long that is, and your body becomes part of that grander picture of what your purpose is, which is to love others and love God.
Yeah.
Just a resource as we start to wrap up that is very good. Sam Albury's written a book on this actually called What God Has to Say About Our Bodies. He touches on things like sexual identity, which is one of his big topics of expertise, but he does go more broadly than that and talks about how do we have good self-image in light of God?
Love it.
How do we think about our bodies physically? How do we deal with the aging process? So if this is something that's sparked an interest in you, I would just thoroughly recommend that book, What God Has to Say About Our Bodies.
Awesome. We'll see you again next week. Again, conversations on the Discord channel. Link will be in the bio. If you've got any feedback on any of these episodes, jump on the Discord server, send us a note. We want the conversation to keep going. And I don't think we see ourselves as like some kind of enlightened human.
We are fellow pilgrims, my friends.
Yeah, and we're on the journey. And so your input is as valuable to this topic as ours. Please share it. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you again next week.
See you next week.